Yelan as well as Hutao will be getting a rerun in the second half of the Genshin 3.4 patch. Now it's been a while since we have seen these characters, and especially the last time we saw these characters were probably before Danjo came out, and a lot of stuff has changed ever since then. Are these characters still good? Are these characters still worth pulling? And that's what we're going to talk about today in this Are They Still Worth video. And as always, subscribe. Let's get started. Starting off with Yelan. Yelan within the Genshin Impact meta is primarily played as a off-field Hydro DPS who have really excellent Hydro application as well. Pretty much more or less as a Xingqiu's number 2. In fact, Yelan is often compared to as a Xingqiu's side grade, not necessarily an upgrade, simply because Xingqiu's provide much more utility, but that's not really a problem since Xingqiu's is currently the best character in the game, so Yelan being comparable to Xingqiu's is actually a really good thing for her. But it's just to say that you shouldn't really pull for Yelan because you're looking to upgrade your Xingqiu's. Unless you're trying to upgrade the boomer part, then that'll be a different story. The main difference between Yelan and Xingqiu's is that Xingqiu's just have much more defensive utility, which is generally more preferred. Xingqiu's have a easier time getting energy recharge, in addition to the fact that Xingqiu's just have much more Hydro application than Yelan, which is again usually much preferred, but not always. However, often Yelan is preferred over Xingqiu's in certain team comp or by certain characters such as Yoimiya. Yoimiya is often ran together with Zhongli, who solves her defensive problem, and therefore you don't really value the defensive utility from Xingqiu's as high, in addition to the fact that Yoimiya can easily take advantage of the Yelan A4 passive, which allow her to gain a little bit more damage and therefore could actually be preferred over Xingqiu's. But the absolute biggest advantage and strength that Yelan has, aside from her big boobs, is her ability to pair together with Xingqiu's rather than replace him. The Yelan Xingqiu's pairing is one of the strongest pairing in the entire game and can hard carry you through not just a lot of content, but to allow you to carry almost any main DPS or on-field DPS characters in the game. Pairing both of these characters together allow them to complement each other and therefore bring out maximum potential from both of these characters. Starting off with the Hydro Resonance, which gives you 25% more extra HP for the entire party. Not only does this make your entire party more tanky, but since Yelan scale off with HP, doing this pairing automatically give her a little bit more damage. But the biggest factor between these two is that it solves their energy recharge problem. When you're running Yelan or Xingqiu's as a solo Hydro in your party, you'll often find yourself running into small amount of energy recharge problem. It isn't the biggest, but you do have to build a good amount of energy recharge on these characters to ensure that their elemental bursts come up on time per rotation. Namely, usually you're looking to build a Sacrificial Sword on Xingqiu's or a Phoneus Warble on Yelan. However, when you're pairing both of these characters together, they can generate Hydro energy for each other and therefore dramatically reduce the energy recharge you need on both of these characters and allow you to run a much more offensive build on both of these characters. Namely, you can run a more offensive orientated Xingqiu's with like a Black Sword as your weapon, maybe even Harbinger of Dawn, and likely go for Yelan as well. The Yelan Xingqiu's double Hydro pairing is one of the strongest pairing in the entire game. It just does so much damage and applies so much Hydro application, and most importantly, it is completely off-field, which allow you to pair with any on-field DPS in the game, such as Skarmory if you desire to, which can easily hard carry a lot of the characters in the game. Characters that really appreciate the double Hydro pairing are characters like Yoimiya, Hutao, or even Xiangling, as these are pyro characters who can dramatically benefit from the amount of Hydro application that these two characters can provide. Or even with the release of Danjo, drafting a double Hydro Hyper Bloom team is absolutely ridiculously strong, with team like Nahida, double Hydro followed by your Electro Applicator, or even like Alahayham. Sorry, Alahayfam. And yeah, while the double Hydro setup with Xingqiu's Yelan is ridiculously strong and dish out an insane amount of damage, it isn't necessarily. Pretty much every single one of these team comp can get away with just running Xingqiu's by itself as a solo Hydro applicator. For example, when it comes down to say a double Hydro Danjo Hyper Bloom setup, yeah, double Hydro is really strong in this team, but you can easily get away with replacing this Yelan with like an Electro characters and using Xingqiu's as your solo Hydro applicator, and it worked completely fine still, which make Yelan not a necessity in this party. The same go for characters like Hutao or Yoimiya, who can easily get enough Hydro application just from a solo Xingqiu's already, and so therefore they don't need to have Xingqiu's and Yelan to supply Hydro. It is still really strong, just again not a necessity to play any of these teams. Not to mention there are many other excellent Hydro applicator in the game in Genshin Impact, such as Ayato or Kokomi, and while one can argue that these characters are not strictly nearly as strong as Yelan on a Genshin Impact meta level, both of these characters are really excellent, and in generals, if you already own these characters or you just prefer to run these characters over Yelan, then you don't have to roll for Yelan either. Next up, we have Hutao. Now, unlike Yelan who got better with the release of Danjo, I actually think Hutao got less valuable with the release of Danjo. Now, before all of you Hutao fangirl, which I know there's a lot of you out there go Yahoo in my inbox, let me slowly explain. Hutao for the longest time is regarded to be a queen of single target DPS, able to shred a lot of bosses in the game and holding one of the highest single target DPS comp in the entire game. And to be honest, all of that is still true. When I said that Hutao got less valuable as time moved on, it doesn't mean that Hutao got weaker as a character. Hutao is still a very powerful character that can dish out an insane amount of damage. It's just the importance of owning her compared to other characters in the game has decreased. Within the Genshin Impact meta, Hutao is played as a pyro on-field DPS, together paired with Xingqius to do a very high amount of single target damage. Now, while Yelan isn't strictly required for you to play Hutao, I would highly recommend pulling for Yelan prior to pulling for Hutao, especially since they're at the same running time as this time rerun. And that would allow you to draft a Hutao double Hydro team setup, which with high investment do one of the highest single target damage in the entire game. There are two major changes after the release of Danjo. Number one is that there are much more teams now that can also dish out very good single target damage, which means that the importance of having to own Hutao to be your single target damage dealer is much less important than before. And the other problem with Hutao is that she is strictly glued to Xingqius, and you can even argue to Yelan as well to draft that Hutao Xingqius Yelan pairing, but one can also argue that these two Hydro characters are much more suited to be placed in a different party that require them, like Hyper Bloom team. Namely, the main competitor with Hutao is the Nahida Hyper Bloom setup. Drafting a Nahida Hyper Bloom with your double Hydro or even just a single Hydro with Xingqius or Yelan is honestly just as good and could even be argued to be much more preferred because it is easier to play and it's much easier to reach the floor that it is needed to clear the abyss. Hyper Bloom teams in general is just much easier to pilot for most players in Genshin Impact, as well as just much easier to get online. They require a lot lower investment to function, and with high investment are still as competitive as Hutao single target damage team. So for the most part, one can definitely argue that the Hyper Bloom team is the way to go now. And again, that makes Hutao less important to own than before. Hutao isn't exactly the most trivial to play characters in the game. Hutao demands a high amount of skill expression in order to dish out a good amount of damage. Namely, without Constellation 1, you're looking at doing something like a N2CJ, which means a jump cancel, or with a Constellation 1, you're looking to pull off consistent dash cancel. The other thing about Hutao is that you might have heard from many players that you need to have Staff of Homer as well as Constellation 1 in order to play her effectively. Now, while I would argue against that, and that is you can get away with running like a Dragon Bane and doing jump cancel with Constellation 0, I conveniently am an owner of Staff of Homer as well as Constellation 1, and I would say that without these two items, I'll probably not play Hutao, and even with these two items, I still don't play Hutao. So, nevertheless, whether or not you own these items or you intend to own these items, or if you can afford these items, which by the way, please don't spend money that you can't afford. I know the Staff of Homer banner is really good right now, but it doesn't mean you should just dump $300 that you don't have. Back to the topic. Whether or not you are an owner of these two items, or you intending to own these two items by, spending much more money than needed on the current character and weapon banner, it is still true at the end of the day that Hutao just demand much more from the player compared to many other effective team in the game. Again, something like the Nahida Hyper Bloom team setup. If you're a Hutao lover, you really like Hutao, or you're a Hutao sim, even a fangirl that would go, Yahoo! Then I think there's no problem pulling for Hutao as long as you understand what is her strength and what you need to get her potential out. Nowadays, if someone were to come and ask me how likely would I recommend pulling for Hutao on a scale of 1 to 5, honestly, I'll answer a 3 out of 5, which means that if you like Hutao, you're a Hutao fangirl that go Yahoo! Then it is completely fine pulling for Hutao. She's still a very excellent PS, but if you don't like Hutao, then it isn't important to pull for her, as there are other characters that you can pull for to achieve similar performance or result as well. With that being said, that's gonna be it for this video. I know there are people who are still debating if they should be rolling for these characters or not, so hopefully this video helped you out, especially with many people or even content creator advertising that this might be one of the best rerun cycle of all time. There are strictly many questions that people are sure to to ask. So hopefully this video helped you out, and if it did, then don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys all next time. Alright, bye bye.